You most likely had a family member who vowed Julie Andrews couldn't do anything wrong or grew up humming Doremi. Here's the problem, though. There is a crazy assortment of behind-the-scenes mysteries hidden beneath those swirling hills and picture-perfect smiles. I mean weird, very bizarre, when I say that. The top 20 strange facts about music that you may not be aware of are covered in this video. Because every information we're going to reveal is more juicy than the previous, don't even consider clicking away. And believe me, the first fact will make you want to stay. In the first scene of number 20, Julie Andrews kept tumbling. On cinema, Julie Andrews' famous opening sequence, in which she spins happily over an alpine meadow, seems effortless. However, the truth about this well-known scene tells a quite different tale. Ironically, one of the final scenes shot in Austria was this iconic opening sequence. Andrews had to walk from one end of a field as a cameraman in a helicopter arrived from the other end as part of the filming procedure. To precisely timing her movements, a crew worker concealed in surrounding bushes yelled, "Go, Julie," over a loudhailer. Before spinning with his arms raised as though to sing, Andrews would start to walk. But after every take, Andrews would be violently knocked to the ground by the helicopter's strong downdraft from the jet engines. This occurred 6 to 9 times rather than just once or twice. She would have to pick herself up after every fall, spit out the dirt and grass, brush off her clothing and then go back to where she started for another take. Particularly remarkable is the contrast between the tumultuous filming conditions and the calm, elegant scene that viewers love. Behind the scenes, Andrews was constantly smashed and became more and more irritated, even though viewers saw a carefree woman dancing over a beautiful meadow. She claimed that she eventually got so angry that she shook the pilot with her fist, asking him to encircle her more widely. The strange filming experience was further enhanced by the cameraman's posture, which caused the helicopter to approach sideways and crabwise like a grasshopper. Due to the helicopter noise, the musical playback was almost inaudible, necessitating the use of very powerful speakers concealed behind trees. These challenges were made worse by the severe weather, as Austria receives the 7th highest annual rainfall in the globe. The movie was 3 weeks behind schedule and significantly over budget by this stage of production, so studio management called the actors back to Los Angeles. What if we told you that one of the Sound of Music's most famous scenes wasn't really intended? Yes, that was a complete accident, and it was included in the final cut. See which one it is by continuing to watch. The genuine Von Trapps, number 19, fled by train rather than across the Alps. In the film's dramatic conclusion, the Von Trapp family hikes across the Alps to Switzerland in order to flee Nazi-occupied Austria. However, this famous scene hardly resembles historical truth. The Von Trapps actually just got on a train and departed Austria throughout the day. We did inform people that we would be singing in America. Furthermore, we did not scale mountains while carrying our bulky equipment and baggage. In a 2003 interview, Maria's daughter revealed, "We left by train pretending nothing." Along with Secretary Martha Zachbauer and their musical conductor, Reverend Franz Wasner, the family left. In the movie, characters blended into the made-up Max Detweiler. First and foremost, they went to Italy rather than Switzerland since George's birthplace, which became Italian territory in 1920, granted him Italian citizenship. It's interesting to note that the family left just one day before Austria's borders were fully closed. In other words, the Von Trapps would have ended up in Nazi Germany rather than neutral Switzerland if they had really tried the mountain crossing shown in the movie. This was around 200 kilometers away. This geographical error was publicly ridiculed by the actual Maria von Trapp, who said, "Don't they know geography in Hollywood? Switzerland is not a neighbor of Salzburg." In short, the most memorable scene in the movie is geographically impossible. In addition, the family's actual daytime exit stands in stark contrast to the spectacular nighttime escape, where their aims were not concealed and they traveled freely. 18. For $9,000, the Von Trapps sold the rights to their narrative. The genuine Von Trapp family made a startling financial error that cost them millions of dollars in lost revenue over the ensuing decades, despite the enormous success of The Sound of Music. Due to financial troubles following George's passing, Maria von Trapp sold German film director Wolfgang Reinhardt the full rights to her 1949 biography, The Story of Trapp Family Singers, for a pittance in 1955. All movie and theater adaptation rights were included in this one-time payment with no royalty clauses. Maria unintentionally gave up all creative control over her family's life story after this sale. The Von Trapps had almost little involvement in the Broadway production or the Hollywood movie that would immortalize them because the American rights were later bought from the German producers. Christopher Plummer, number 17, was intoxicated during Edelweiss. Behind the poignant performance of Edelweiss that still affects audiences today is a startling admission made by Christopher Plummer. When the final shot from the music festival was being filmed, he was totally inebriated. Plummer acknowledged in the 35th anniversary DVD commentary that he was extremely inebriated when filming the crucial music festival scene in which the Von Trapp family performs prior to their audacious escape from Austrian Nazis. The performer used alcohol as a calming agent because he was obviously anxious about performing with a full orchestra. I was trembling. The first time I saw a full orchestra, I was frightened. Plummer admitted, I would have fainted if Julie hadn't had to hold me. Andrews provided her drunken co-star with physical support throughout the scene as he gave one of the most heartfelt performances in the movie. Furthermore, Plummer's professional experience as a trained Shakespearean actor with multiple prominent roles stands in sharp contrast to his inebriated state. Notably, Plummer subsequently called his actions unconscionable and said, I was a young, conceited, spoiled bastard who had been spoilt by too many great theater roles. This was hardly the only scene in which he drank. He later admitted that at the time, I was drinking excessively. Surprisingly, Plummer's drunkenness might have unintentionally increased the scene's emotional effect. Millions of moviegoers around the world as well as the fictional festival crowd were enthralled by the deep emotion and sensitivity he displayed while performing Edelweiss. There were a lot of odd secrets, amusing errors, and information you've probably never heard behind those hills that were throbbing with music. To find out which is the most unexpected, watch through to the very end. 16. There was a cameo by the genuine Maria von Trapp. The actual Maria von Trapp makes a brief, uncredited cameo during Julie Andrews' rendition of I Have Confidence in the film based on her life story, an incredible turn of events in cinematic history that many viewers miss entirely. In the backdrop, the actual Maria can be seen passing an archway as Andrews marches through Salzburg on his way to the Von Trapp home. It will be lost if you blink. When Andrews sings the lines, I must stop these doubts, all these worries, appearance happens exactly as planned. I just know I'll go back if I don't. The real Maria wasn't alone herself. She was accompanied by Barbara, the daughter of Werner von Trapp, and her daughter Rosemary. When these three women briefly cross the screen behind Andrews, the background appears to be a city center. Strangely, despite giving Maria this special appearance, the producers did not invite her to the movie's premiere. When Maria asked why she hadn't received an invitation, the producers merely informed her that there were no seats left. Many people found this omission to be extremely impolite, especially in light of the considerate act of incorporating her appearance. Furthermore, Andrews' depiction of Maria was very different from the real one. People who watched Maria on TV shows like Dinah Shore's show said she was a real force of nature and nothing like the movie's portrayal of her as a kind Bryn Mawr. The youngest Von Trapp, number 15, nearly drowned. The seemingly peaceful rowboat scene with the Von Trapp children featured a frightening tragedy that was kept secret from viewers for decades. Kim Carruth, who played young Gretel, was 5 years old when she almost died in a horrifying accident. The dangerous incident occurred while the scene where Maria takes the kids rowing across a lake was being filmed. The family rises to greet Captain Von Trapp as part of the script, resulting in the capsize of the boat. Unbelievably, the assistant director came to Julie Andrews with unsettling news just before the shoot began. The child is incapable of swimming. Andrews was naturally taken aback and asked, "What?" Not a single issue occurred on the first take. However, catastrophe happened as soon as the second take started. Unexpectedly violently, the boat swayed, tossing Andrews over the back and little Kim over the front and straight into the deep ocean. The kindergarten-aged actor was underwater and battling for her life in a matter of seconds. First of all, it is incredibly careless of the production to have no safety precautions at all for a water scenario, including youngsters who cannot swim. Even worse is the fact that nobody had the idea to let Andrews know that Kim couldn't swim until just before the cameras started rolling, which left her without a chance to protest or ask for safety precautions. By today's standards of filmmaking, the decision's irresponsibility is stunning, considering that the scene could have easily been shot in shallow water or with safety divers. Most unsettlingly, Kim suffered long-lasting psychological harm as a result of this horrific event, as she had a lingering phobia of water into adulthood. Liesl hurt her ankle dancing on number 14. The passionate dance sequence in 16 Going on 17, one of the movie's most popular musical pieces, left actress Charmian Carr with a serious injury, although most viewers were unaware that they were witnessing a performance in real suffering. In reality, the final scene shot for the film was the one in the gazebo where Liesl and Rolf dance. Charmian Carr, 21, tried a choreographed jump across the sleek oak seats that lined the inside of the glass gazebo during the first take. She had no traction at all because the costume department had neglected to add rubber bottoms to her dancing shoes. She slipped disastrously during her first jump, slamming through a glass pane of the gazebo. The actress suffered a sprained ankle in the incident, which sent shards flying. The fact that there are several versions of the film, each with varying degrees of injury visible, is perhaps the most peculiar aspect of this episode. There are images in previous editions that plainly show Carr's bandaged ankle, causing a continuity mistake that is usually missed by spectators. However, this evidence was meticulously removed from remastered copies. Furthermore, the dancing sequence didn't really take place in the gazebo that was used for outside shots and was ultimately given to Salzburg. The producers had to construct a larger copy in their Hollywood studio since the interior was too small for the intricate choreography. Instead of delaying filming, a medical professional on the set promptly gave Carr's wounded ankle a pain shot and covered it with a heavy bandage. Throughout the sequence, spectators can still notice that her right ankle is much thicker than her left, despite the wardrobe team's efforts to hide the swelling with stockings. Remarkably, Carr persisted in doing all of the remaining dance moves as scheduled in spite of her injury. At the end of filming, the entire team gave Sarah an unplanned standing ovation for her professionalism and perseverance. 13. It took 2 months to film the Doremi sequence. The famous Doremi montage in The Sound of Music demanded more perseverance and patience than other scenes in movie history. This seemingly innocuous musical number turned into an unanticipated production nightmare, taking an incredible 2 months to finish. The main cause of the prolonged filming schedule was the unpredictable Austrian weather. In an area that receives some of the most precipitation in Europe each year, the production crew had to contend with persistent rain. Filming was regularly interrupted by unexpected downpours, chilly spring temperatures, and continuous cloudy conditions. Because of these weather restrictions, it took 5 full days to photograph the meadow picnic scene alone. The sequence involved coordinating filming over 9 different Salzburg locations, which made logistics even more difficult. Every day, the production crew had to move crew and equipment between locations, and Julie Andrews occasionally arrived at distant shooting locations on an ox cart. Furthermore, before going to Austria, Andrews and the kids had to practice riding bicycles down streets at Fox Studios to get their timing with the music just so. It's really amazing how different reality is from what you see on screen. Although audiences witness happy, sun-drenched montages, the real filming conditions were often awful. Between shots, cast members, especially the kids, were frequently seen hunched under blankets, frantically attempting to remain warm. Remembering Kim Carruth, she said, "I don't think anybody thought it wasn't going to be kind of chilly or rainy, but I think they sort of miscalculated." Beyond the weather, everyone's endurance was put to the test by pragmatic reasons. Cast and crew had to deal with substandard conditions in far-flung filming locales. For miles, there were no restrooms. Technical difficulties also increased. Equipment shortages for special effects and nighttime shots got so bad that lights and generators had to be ordered from all around Europe. Despite the film's charming and innocent appearance, there were some unexpected and even strange behind-the-scenes occurrences. What transpired during that well-known mountain scene will astound you. Stay tuned for fact number 11. 12. Despite his dominating demeanor, Captain Von Trapp's singing voice was dubbed as such. For years after the film's premiere, viewers were mostly unaware that Christopher Plummer's iconic musical performances in The Sound of Music weren't really his own voice. All of Plummer's musical parts featured dubbed vocals by the talented session vocalist Bill Lee, who is frequently referred to as the singing voice of Hollywood. Lee has a long list of credits, having dubbed for many non-singing actors over the course of his career. Millions of people were duped by the compelling illusion he created by blending his voice in perfectly with Plummer's speaking voice. In the production, this was not a unique instance. The singing vocals of a number of other characters were either improved or completely changed. Marjorie McKay's stirring performance of Climb Every Mountain was also dubbed by Peggy Wood, who played Mother Abbess. The fact that Plummer was a trained vocalist with significant skill is what makes this dubbing so odd. Plummer had a decent singing voice, unlike many actors who need dubbing because they are not very musically inclined. It seems that he just thought the songs that were assigned to his character were too sentimental and didn't like them. His general dislike of the movie, which he frequently described as having a mucus-like sound, perhaps played a part in his hesitation to sing. Consequently, Plummer's character needed vocal substitution, even if Julie Andrews did a fantastic job performing all of her own songs. 11. At first, Maria didn't love George. Maria and George Von Trapp's actual relationship did not start off as a romantic fairy tale, in contrast to the film's depiction of their instant connection. Another intriguing aspect of the real tale behind The Sound of Music is shown by this sharp difference between Hollywood's portrayal and reality. Maria openly acknowledged in her autobiography that she had no love sentiments at all when she married the captain. Years later, she admitted in interviews that she was not in love with him. Above all, Maria saw their marriage not as a romantic union but as a religious obligation. She remembered being torn and unsure when the captain proposed. At first, she rejected him. She conferred with her mother, Abbess, before deciding to wed him. He persuaded her that marrying the captain and becoming a mother to his children was God's will. The real relationship started nearly as a business arrangement, which contrasts with the movie's depiction of lingering looks and suppressed attraction. It's interesting to note that when Maria first came to the Von Trapp residence, she was only hired as a teacher for Maria, one of the kids, who had scarlet fever. Not as all seven's governess. Naturally, there is an intriguing contrast between the intense romance in the film and Maria's candid admission that, although I liked him, I didn't love him. Maria even clarified that she had initially been appalled by the captain, displaying none of the bashful awe portrayed on TV. Number 10, the strict one was actually Maria. Perhaps the most glaring lie in the entire cinematic depiction of Maria and George Von Trapp's narrative is the total reversal of their personalities. The real Maria Von Trapp was a strict disciplinarian who exercised strict control over her home, in contrast to Julie Andrews' kind, affectionate portrayal. As a result, she closely monitored all 10 kids. And often had a temperament that was erratic. Her unexpected furious outbursts, which included yelling, throwing objects, and slamming doors, were remembered by family members. Maria's stepdaughter gave a detailed account of these incidents. Her temper was awful. You had no idea what had hit her from one second to the next. Though they weren't used to such erratic behavior, the Von Trapp kids learned to handle these emotional upheavals since they knew her sense of humor would soon return. Most perplexing of all, the icy, whistle-blowing despot shown on TV was not at all like the actual Captain Von Trapp. George, on the other hand, was a kind, loving parent who loved doing musical things with his family. His persona was so misrepresented in the movie that it caused his kids a great deal of anguish. Trapp, Johannes. Considering their demanding musical education, it was observed that each child was expected to learn music on their own and that rehearsals took place every day from 10 to 12 and 4 to 6. It was undoubtedly Maria's leadership, not Georg's, that was responsible for this intensity. The original title of number 9 was Love Song. Few fans are aware that the famous musical almost had its cinematic debut under a different name. Rodgers and Hammerstein's masterwork nearly started off with a completely other identity before it became a common term. The adaptation of this well-known musical was originally intended to be called Love Song. During the early phases of development, this working title was used for both the Broadway production and the ensuing movie. Love Song was mentioned in pre-production materials, production notes, and early manuscripts. This title, according to Rodgers and Hammerstein, perfectly encapsulated the romantic undertones present in their version of Maria von Trapp's autobiography. Most remarkably, this initial title has almost nothing to do with the musical's main themes of artistic expression, patriotism, and family. Furthermore, Love Song does not capture the Austrian environment or the extraordinary voyage of the von Trapp family. Perhaps most significantly, Love Song's generic quality appears strikingly uninspired in contrast to the unique title we are already familiar with. Considering the founders' well-known inventiveness, their first selection seems rather uninspired and unimaginative. The story's musical core is exquisitely captured in the updated title, which also effectively communicates the narrative's use of music to transform. An unintentionally brilliant branding choice that probably helped the movie's long-term success. Plummer and Julie Andrews were giggling uncontrollably at number 8. The film's main performer's wild bursts of laughter almost brought down one of Hollywood's most romantic moments. While filming the delicate love scene in the gazebo, Julie Andrews and Christopher Plummer encountered an unforeseen obstacle. Throughout the filming of the personal song Something Good, Andrews and Plummer couldn't stop laughing. The actors would start their amorous scene every time the director ordered action, only to break character a few seconds later. Give in to your laughter. Neither actor was able to remain composed as this went on, take after take. The cause of their hysterical laughter was a strange technical glitch that led to an awkward circumstance. Strange, unsuitable noises were made by the strong arc lights employed for the gazebo scene at night. The romantic ambience was completely destroyed when the lights made noises that sounded like body functions as the actors tried to exchange passionate looks. Shooting the scene in silhouette was the production team's solution after several futile efforts. The need for front-facing lighting that was producing the annoying noises was removed thanks to this ingenious solution. In the end, the use of silhouettes heightened the scene's personal atmosphere and produced one of the most visually arresting scenes in the movie. 7th place. The movie was on a list of emergency broadcasts during the Cold War. Beyond its popularity as a song, The Sound of Music held a unique position in Cold War history as a possible source of solace in the event of a nuclear war. There was much more to this acclaimed movie than just amusement. The BBC painstakingly created a unique transmission schedule for a nuclear emergency during the Cold War. The Sound of Music was at the top of this list of contingencies, chosen especially to be aired as the 4-minute warning sirens went off. The purpose of this well-planned emergency programming was to raise spirits among the thousands of people who would likely be stranded in houses or shelters after a nuclear attack. At number 6, the Broadway version was despised by critics. Despite the fact that audiences all around the world loved the music, many fans are unaware that the original Broadway performance from 1959 was harshly criticized by critics who wrote it off as being out of date and cheesy. The theatrical musical by Rodgers and Hammerstein was subjected to extremely critical reviews by theater critics. Later, Bosley Crowther of the New York Times criticized the film adaptation, calling it cozy-cum corny and featuring some rather awful adult characters. It has too much sugar and not enough spice, according to an unnamed critic of Time magazine. Perhaps the harshest criticism was given by Pauline Kael, who described music as the greatest oppressive influence on artistic freedom in films and the sugar-coated deception that audiences seem to want to consume. Her position at McCall's magazine was apparently lost as a result of her scathing review. With evaluations that ranged from negative to mixed, these bitter skeptics effectively TP'd the Rodgers and Hammerstein Cathedral. However, what detractors deemed to be out of date somehow became timeless, touching the hearts of both those who had pleasant family memories and those who didn't but wished they did. Do you think you understand how music sounds? What if we told you that Maria's secret is hidden behind that pine cone? You'll gasp at that. Indeed. Await the fourth fact. The fifth. The national anthem of Austria is not Edelweiss. The idea that Edelweiss is Austria's national anthem is arguably the most pervasive misperception regarding music's sound. Far beyond what its authors ever meant, this endearing ballad, which arouses strong emotions throughout the movie, has acquired a cultural significance. Many viewers from other countries are adamant that Edelweiss has centuries-old Austrian roots. This misperception, surprisingly, reaches the highest ranks. To the confusion of the Austrian delegates in attendance, the song was once played during a White House banquet honoring the Austrian president. Even now, visitors to Salzburg sometimes inquire about this age-old folk tune from the residents. The concealed innuendo comes in at number 4. As the kids execute a practical joke, there is a scene in the song where young Maria sits on a pine cone at dinner and flinches in agony. However, the scene has a subtle insinuation that many adults find offensive. Particularly as it is depicted, sitting on a pointy pine cone suggests discomfort in a very private area. Adults notice the awkward suggestion, while children see mischief. It's a benign classic with an unexpectedly explicit humor. And it's difficult to unsee once you've caught it. With a shockingly mature twist, it's a blink and you'll miss it moment. Thirdly, Uncle Max was queer. It is among those realizations that are easy to overlook. The Sound of Music's Uncle Max was gay. And that alters all of your preconceived notions about his personality. He appeared to be the entertaining, quirky uncle with a musical bent when I was a kid. But when viewed through a historical perspective as an adult, it strikes a different chord. He is a Jewish man in Austria in the 1930s who was closeted and gay, two characteristics that would have made him a target under Nazi control. Additionally, he aids in the Von Trapp's escape. All of a sudden, his humorous remarks have significance. Uncle Max was courageous in addition to being endearing. Second, while filming, Nicholas Hammond experienced a growth spurt. One adolescent actor's rapid physical development presented a particularly unique continuity issue that jeopardized the visual integrity of the film, among the many other production issues encountered throughout production. Lineup of the whole Von Trapp family. Nicholas Hammond, who played 14-year-old Friedrich Von Trapp, underwent an incredible growth spurt during the 6-month filming period. I'll see you shortly. Hammond was just 5 feet 3 inches tall at the start of the shoot. He was 5 feet 9 inches tall, having grown an incredible 6 inches by the end of filming. An instant visual issue resulted from this drastic physical change. Friedrich was supposed to be younger than Charmian Carr's character, Liesel, his sister. But now he was taller than her. Hammond's quick growth required many costume changes in addition to his height fluctuation. The wardrobe department found it difficult to keep up, occasionally needing new clothes every few weeks. A number of inventive workarounds were used by the production team to cover up Hammond's growing height. In order to keep Hammond's height relationships with the other actors constant, they first put big lifts on his shoes. They completely removed these lifts as filming went on and he continued to grow. In moments with Carr, Hammond eventually had to stand barefoot. Carr had to stand on apple boxes more and more to make herself look taller than her younger brother, who was growing up very quickly. In order to create the appearance of appropriate height relationships, the cameraman also used forced perspective and clever positioning, maintaining distance between the actors. First of all, the actors had to utilize the woods as restrooms. The filming conditions were unexpectedly rudimentary, despite the picture's idyllic alpine scenery set to music, requiring the workers and actors to use pretty odd lieu arrangements during the whole production. Filming in